There is someone in your life right now who makes you feel smaller every time you leave the room, and you cannot explain why, because on paper they have done nothing wrong. They are charming when other people are watching, and they always have a reasonable explanation for their behavior. Yet every time you try to describe the problem to someone else, it sounds like you are the one being difficult. The Stoics spent their entire lives surrounded by exactly this kind of person, and they left behind a set of observations that will make you see the people around you with terrifying clarity. Dangerous people are almost never obviously dangerous, because if they were, nobody would ever let them get close enough to do any damage. Instead, they arrive with warmth and attentiveness, and they are often the most generous people in the room when it comes to compliments or small favors. You might feel like you have finally found someone who truly understands you, or someone who is uniquely invested in your success. But this is often an investment rather than an act of genuine friendship. They are building a debt that you did not agree to, and they are doing it with such grace that you feel ungrateful for even questioning their motives. The Stoics were very careful to distinguish between genuine virtue and the performance of virtue, because they knew that a person can act the part of a friend while pursuing their own hidden agenda. Marcus Aurelius warned that you should not confuse a person's presentation with their character, because character is revealed through consistent actions over time, while presentation can be manufactured in a moment. You must learn to look past the surface level of their personality and ask yourself why they are being so attentive, and whether that attention remains constant when there is nothing for them to gain. Genuine kindness is a steady stream, while strategic charm is a flood that happens only when the conditions are right for the person controlling the water. But charm is only the entry point, because the real test of a person's character is not how they make you feel when they want something, but it is what they do when you are the one who needs something from them. A person who uses charm as a strategy will eventually reveal themselves through the way they handle the social debts they have created. In a healthy relationship, a gift is given without a ledger, and a favor is done because it is the right thing to do. But for a dangerous person, every act of kindness comes with a receipt that they will eventually present to you. They remember your birthday with an elaborate gift, but they will bring up that gift 3 months later when they need you to overlook a boundary or do something that makes you uncomfortable. This creates a psychological trap where you feel like you owe them your compliance because they have been so good to you in the past. Seneca wrote that a gift given with the expectation of return is not a gift, but a transaction disguised as kindness, and he believed that we should be very careful about who we choose to be indebted to. When you notice that someone is tracking every nice thing they have ever done for you, it is a sign that they do not see you as a person, but as a resource to be managed. You are not being paranoid for noticing this pattern, because the feeling of being bought is your intuition telling you that the relationship is not based on mutual respect, but on a slow accumulation of leverage. Watch how they talk about the favors they do for others, and if they complain about people being ungrateful, or if they constantly remind others of what they owe, it is only a matter of time before they do the same to you. This behavior is a direct violation of the Stoic idea that we should do good because it is our nature as social beings rather than as a way to control those around us. There is a specific moment that reveals everything about a person, and it is not a grand event, but a very small one that usually happens in private. You tell them about something painful like a loss or a fear or a failure, and instead of sitting with you in that moment, they immediately redirect the conversation back to themselves or offer a solution that is really just a way to move past your discomfort. They might say that they have been through something much worse, or they might give you a list of things you should have done differently, which effectively turns your moment of need into a lecture on your inadequacy. The absence of empathy is not always cruelty, and sometimes it looks like efficiency or a desire to be helpful. But what it really signifies is an inability to recognize your internal world as being just as valid as theirs. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we are all part of one body, and that harming another person is like a hand cutting off a foot because it damages the whole, and a person who cannot feel what you feel is disconnected from the basic principle that human beings are built for cooperation. If they view your emotions as a problem to be solved or a distraction from their own needs, they are showing you that they do not value you as a human being, but as a supporting character in their own story. You will often find that this lack of empathy creates a massive asymmetry in the relationship where your world must stop when they are hurting, but your own struggles are dismissed as dramatic or irrelevant. When they are going through a difficult time, they expect total devotion, and they will use your previous kindness against you if you do not provide it. But when the roles are reversed, they are suddenly too busy, or they tell you that you are overreacting. This is not a personality difference or a result of them being bad with emotions, because they are usually very good at expressing and validating their own emotions. It is a deliberate choice to prioritize their reality over yours, which is a fundamental red flag in any human interaction. The Stoics believed that we should be strict with ourselves and lenient with others. But a dangerous person reverses this by being incredibly lenient with their own flaws while being judge and jury for everyone else. They will excuse their own outbursts as a result of stress while calling your reasonable boundaries an act of aggression. You must pay attention to this imbalance because it is the foundation upon which they will build a system of control. A lack of empathy is damaging enough on its own, but the truly dangerous person goes further because they do not just fail to feel what you feel, but they actively reshape how you see reality until you are not sure what you feel either. The most dangerous thing a toxic person does is not what they do to you directly, but what they make you do to yourself by eroding your confidence in your own judgment. This is a slow and systematic process where you used to trust your own instincts, and now you find yourself second-guessing every decision you make. You might find that you have started running your opinions past them first, just to make sure they are correct, or you find yourself staying silent in situations where you used to speak up because you are afraid of their reaction. This erosion happens through 1,000 small interactions where they subtly suggest that you are too sensitive, or that you are remembering things incorrectly, or that your perspective is flawed in some fundamental way. They do not need to control you through force because they have convinced you that your own mind is an unreliable narrator, and once your perception is compromised, you will control yourself on their behalf. Epictetus built his entire philosophy on the idea that our judgments are the only thing truly in our control, and he taught that the worst thing that can happen to a person is to have their capacity for judgment corrupted. When someone manipulates your perception, they are attacking the inner citadel that the Stoics said you must protect above everything else, because if you cannot trust your own ability to reason, you have lost your freedom. This destruction of your judgment often takes the form of reframing your reasonable reactions as being the actual problem in the relationship. If you catch them in a lie, they will focus on the fact that you were checking up on them rather than the lie itself. And if you express hurt, they will tell you that you are being irrational or that you are making them feel like they have to walk on eggshells. They are systematically dismantling your ability to see reality clearly so that their version of events becomes the only one that exists in the room. The Stoics would call this the destruction of the ruling faculty, which is the part of you that reasons and evaluates and decides what is true about the world. Without this faculty, you are like a ship without a rudder being tossed around by the whims and moods of the person who has taken control of your perception. The practical test for this is very simple because you only need to ask yourself if you feel more confused or more clear after spending time with this person. A person who genuinely cares about your well-being will leave you feeling more certain of yourself and your place in the world, even if they are giving you difficult feedback. If every interaction ends with you questioning your own memory or your own worth, you are not in a relationship but in an occupation, and the territory being occupied is your own mind. You might wonder why you allowed this to happen, and the answer is that your own goodness was used against you. You were taught to give people the benefit of the doubt and to be patient with the flaws of those close to you, which is generally a virtuous way to live. But the Stoics taught that virtue without wisdom is just another form of self-deception. You have likely spent years making excuses for this person by telling yourself they had a difficult childhood, or that they are just under stress right now. But those things do not change the objective reality of how they treat you, and they do not grant anyone the right to damage your peace. Once you see the pattern clearly, the question becomes what to do about it, and the Stoic answer is not what you expect, because it is quieter and more disciplined and more devastating than any confrontation. The Stoic response to a dangerous person is not revenge or dramatic exits or trying to win an argument, because all of those things require you to stay engaged with the very person who is draining you. Marcus Aurelius dealt with dangerous people every single day of his reign as emperor, including senators who smiled while plotting against him and advisors who told him only what they thought he wanted to hear. His response was not to become paranoid or bitter, but to see each person clearly and then choose his own behavior regardless of theirs. He famously wrote that when you wake in the morning, you should tell yourself that you will meet the meddling and the ungrateful and the arrogant and the deceitful, and that none of them can hurt you because none of them can force you to abandon your own character. This is the most aggressive form of self-defense, because it is the total refusal to become like the person who is trying to damage you. You do not owe a toxic person a long explanation of why you are pulling away, because they will only use that explanation as more material for their manipulation. You owe yourself the quiet discipline of stepping back and reducing your exposure until they no longer have a hold on your emotional state. This means you stop seeking their approval, and you stop sharing your personal thoughts, and you remove them from the position of influence they have built inside your head. The goal is to reach a state where their behavior no longer dictates your internal weather, because you have reinforced the walls of your inner citadel. Seneca was very direct about the fact that we should associate only with people who will make us better, and that we should welcome those whom we can also improve. There is a mutual profit in healthy relationships, but if someone consistently makes you worse by making you more anxious or more confused or less certain of who you are, then continuing that relationship is not an act of loyalty, but an act of self-harm. You do not need to announce your boundaries with a grand speech, because your actions will communicate everything that needs to be said. Walk away quietly and protect your peace without the need for drama, and let your absence be the only statement you ever need to make. The person in your life who makes you feel smaller, but who you could never quite explain to anyone else, is someone you now have the language for, and you can see the pattern for what it actually is. The Stoics did not teach you to suspect everyone you meet, but they did teach you to observe clearly and to act according to the truth of what you see. Most people in your life are likely good, but the ones who are not will cost you years of your life if you let them, and the only defense is your own willingness to see what is actually in front of you. Trust what you feel, because if someone consistently makes you doubt your own mind, that is not a relationship worth protecting. Your clarity is worth more than their comfort. If this helped, subscribe. There is more coming.